Hi, my name is EJ Massa. I hated this episode, so if you enjoyed this episode, that's awesome. And I don't want to be the person that yucks your yum because I can see why you like or even love this episode. I understand completely. However, I do have to tell you how I truly feel because I'm not one of those YouTubers that will hide their feelings just so I'll be more popular or that you'll like me better. I gotta be real with you. This episode was probably the most disappointing episode of the series. And that's not the same thing as the worst episode of the series because I could think of a couple from season 5 that are probably worse. But after the previous episode's table setting, I was hyped for some emotional stakes and set pieces and I got something, but I felt nothing. And I think it's because the foundation of this episode was made of sand. The whole thrust of it was to get a White to prove something to Cersei, who is known for not giving a fuck and blowing up her enemies. The show can't show this to me and then take Cersei as a serious level-headed player. It was just such a distractingly terrible plan that I couldn't bring myself to enjoy the episode, and it's only made worse by logic-defying plot points. But at the end of the day, it's just a TV show, so you can't get too upset without looking like too much of a tool bag. The guys are trekking up north. Jon's getting lectured about being stubborn from a freaking wildling, and Gendry's complaining about Red Priest kidnapping him and putting leeches on his dick. And the Hound is like, hey, you're alive in the world of Game of Thrones. Don't complain. Gendry's 1 second away from mugging at the camera like Jim from The Office. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the two-hander scene wheel. Make your treks up north more character-driven with the two-hander scene wheel. You spin the wheel, and whatever two characters land on the arrow get to have a scene together. With this motley crew of characters, many of whom have never had scenes together, surely some amazing interactions will unfold. Here we go! Jorah and Jon, come on down. Jon and Jorah talk about their daddies. I knew your daddy, Jorah. And I knew your daddy, Jon. Daddies are the best. They sure are, Jon. They then talk about who's worthy of Longclaw, but it comes off as an allegory of who's worthy to date Dany. Sorry, Jorah. There's always Tyrion. At Winterfell, there's an infuriating scene after infuriating scene with these two. Arya reminisces about Ned.
You probably don't remember you're inside knitting all the time.
Oh, burn. Arya recites a nice little monologue about Ned, who encouraged her to do boy things. I regret everything. Arya's mad at Sansa for writing the letter helping the Lannisters.
I would have let them kill me before I betrayed my family.
Does serving the patriarch of the Lannisters count as betraying your family? Because you totally did that, idiot. Anyways, they argue because the plot needs them to argue. They try to out-victim each other, but Arya stops the argument by threatening to show the letter to Lyanna, which is just brutal. You know, Jon should have taken Lyanna Mormont up north. He took the wrong Mormont if you ask me. She could have taken care of the Night King faster than you can send a rocket raven. Hey, sup, dog boy? Actually, it's the Hound. Whatever, dog boy. Let's give the internet some meme fodder. So we'll talk about gingers, Brienne and Tormund shipping, dick jokes, and murder. Jokes for days, these two. The internet loves ya. Beric and Jon also play the I know your daddy game. Your father sent me on a mission to kill the mountain when I looked like this. Now I'm handsome and have an eye patch. Best thing that ever happened to me. Now let's fight for life because, well, death always wins, but life doesn't always. So we need to fight for life, and I don't know if God is real, but eat, pray, love. Jon is unsure if what he said was coherent, but his voice is pretty, so he'll go with it. Dany and Tyrion are having a chat. You know what I like about you, Tyrion? You're a weak little troll who doesn't want to be a macho, sexy man like all these men I want to have sex with. Thanks. Speaking of sex, since you don't have any heirs, maybe we should shake things up a bit. Run a little democracy, like people choose their successors. Or how about I rule with an iron fist until I die, and I don't care what happens after. I'll be dead, but I don't care. As our ragtag group approaches the Arrowhead Mountain, they're attacked by a zombie bear. You see, this scene is important because it reminds the audience that animals can be turned into zombies. Thoros gets Leonardo DiCaprio'd, Revenant style. You guys have never played an MMORPG. You gotta protect your cleric. God. After the bear is made dead, Thoros walks off his bear wound. Walk it off.
Where did she get it?
I don't know.
A bunch of scheming happens in this scene, and I can't really bring myself to care about any of this, so moving on. Jorah tells Thoros he always liked it when he fought with his flaming sword. I fought with a flaming sword? Dude, I must have been so blasted. You just fought with a flaming sword. Dude, what the fuck did I do? The group comes across a White Walker troop. A little battle happens, and Jon kills the leader, which kills a bunch of the whites. The show is teaching you a new rule. Make sure you're paying attention to what the writers are teaching you. A wild white appears. Gotta get its health to red and paralyze it. And a wild white was caught. Zombie backup arrives, and Jon sends Gendry to run home because he's the fastest? Why make a big deal about Gendry and his hammer if he barely used it? Yeah, the Hound uses it like once, but it's weird to tease Gendry as this badass and then it never pays off. He ran instead. Should have had a setup that showcases that he's good at running. You know, maybe Davos catches him running laps in Flea Bottom. I don't know. Then they run across the lake and somebody falls and breaks through the ice. Oh my god, who was it? Oh, it's another red shirt? Where the heck did these guys come from? Here's the problem with the red shirts. One would die, and since they weren't established enough in previous shots, you know, it would happen and then I would be like, who died? Who died? Oh, I guess it was nobody. And then it happened 3 or 4 more times. Doesn't help that they're all wearing the same fur coats. They could even just have one line of dialogue establishing that they're there from one of the main characters. Or maybe, like, they could just say one thing in the conversation. As it is, it's just pure plot fodder. Remember when Hardhome set up Carsey in the same episode and made her death impactful? We should do more of that. Anyways, somehow a lake that's this deep in the north has ice thin enough that zombies can fall through it, leaving these dudes stranded on the island. Gendry used the Pegasus boots from Link to the Past to get back to Eastwatch. Take this, Rocket Raven. You know what to do. Thoros died in the night. They should have just had him die at the bear attack for efficiency, but whatever. Jorah and Jon go over the rules they just learned in the previous scene, so the audience knows about the rules about how White Walkers and Whites work. With Thoros dead, Beric is on his last quarter of this arcade machine called life. Sansa is sending Brienne to King's Landing for schemes and whatever, who cares. Although clearly this is so Brienne and Jaime can have another scene together, and you know, I'm kind of okay with that.
The Rocket Raven did its job, and goddamn, Dany, you're saving these guys in style.
You can't ride a dragon wearing, like, Uggs, a North Face jacket, and leggings. That'd be a crime.
Tyrion doesn't want Dany to go, but let's be real. This was your dumb idea in the first place. Red Rover, send zombie over. No, I wasn't talking about all of you. Anyways, this fight plays out like a more boring version of 300. What's that red shirt with the spear trying to hit? Dany has GPS and finds these guys quickly. She definitely didn't use Apple Maps because then she'd be in the middle of the goddamn desert. She burns stuff and it looks like she's saving the day. But the Night King's got this. He's been training for months. I could have used the javelin on these dudes on the island, but hardly a challenge. I could throw it at that much closer dragon? No, that's beneath the javelin champion king, knight. Booyah! Nailed it. Your heart out, Jan Zeleny, who I just googled so I could write this joke. Oh, shit. Jon, get in the freaking car, dude. But they leave without him and Jon takes a dip. Jon is cold and wet, and this is the end for him. Nope, Deus Ex Benjen once again. So will it be a beautiful reunion with his uncle? Nope, Benjen died as he lived. As a plot device.
Now the whole Benjen thing may seem out of nowhere, but maybe Bran sent Benjen to Jon the same way the Three-Eyed Raven sent Benjen to Bran. Or maybe the writing's terrible.
Dany's waiting for Jon to appear back at Eastwatch. Oh, there he is. Quick, get him some Campbell's soup so we can thaw him out like that commercial that ran for like 20 years. Sansa is snooping and finds Arya's Leatherface masks. Oh, so she's a serial killer. Of course. Arya comes in and...
I could even become you.
Arya, that's cold. Dany comes to see Jon, and if the abs and scars didn't turn her on, Jon pledges to bend the knee. Panties wet. I know you can't physically bend the knee, but could you maybe describe it to me slowly and softly?
People complain about the Jon and Dany relationship being, you know, not organic and feeling a little forced, but I don't know. Two hot people who are shallow, just wanting to bone. I can see it. Definitely wasn't my biggest problem with the episode. Maybe a tad cringy, especially when Jon calls Daenerys Dany. Ugh, gross. What kind of tool bag would do that?
In the final scene is the Night King pulling Viserion out of the water and turning him into a zombie dragon. Well, I guess that's how he's gonna get past the wall.
He's gonna melt the wall. If the dragon doesn't breathe blue fire, I'm gonna be disappointed. Because he's dead now, he's a White Walker, it's gonna be blue.
The Night King must have known a dragon was coming. They don't sell these giant-ass chains at Home Depot. He planned for this eventuality. Maybe he saw the episode early when HBO Spain leaked it.
He made his little zombie army forge giant chains in little zombie forges, which is tough because they'd constantly be setting themselves on fire. Alright, let's start with some positives.
There wasn't a time in this episode where I thought the visual effects looked bad. I mean, it's great stuff. The two-hander scenes up north were very fun, and some great interactions between characters who have never interacted before. And of course, the dragon death was very impactful and shocking.
However, there are too many logically frustrating plot points, including the reason why they're on this mission in the first place.
Also, the Arya and Sansa stuff, it's just not working for me. It feels more frustrating than dramatic.
It may sound like I'm nitpicking, but you know, I was on the streets of Boston and I overheard a crowd of girls like complaining about Game of Thrones. They were frustrated with all the time shenanigans and illogical travel of ravens and Dany coming back. Just dumb normies on the streets complaining about this. So if even the common person on the street is nitpicking, I think the show has a problem. I don't care about time hops or making the episodes and pace faster to wrap things up, but I just want a coherent and logical story with some emotional stakes, and I feel like this episode was clearly lacking in that department. This whole season feels like the product of writing backwards. It'd be cool if we had an undead dragon. How do we get to this situation? And then they thought about it for like 10 minutes and they went with the first pitch. It's not the pace of the season that feels rushed, it's the writing overall. All spectacle, with very little substance. This show used to reward you for digging into the details of this complex world, but now it requires the opposite. You have to turn off your brain or else you'll be punished. I give this episode Transformers 5 out of 10. Let's see how this all wraps up. For all I know, it'll resolve itself in a very satisfying way. You know, I want this show to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, show. Until next time, bye.